All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks Aston for agreeing to do the interview. This is the first sort of more formal interview type thing we've done via this platform, so it'll be interesting to see how we go. But firstly, I guess we've already did it, but congrats, Aston. It was really fantastic to see such an awesome result. But I want to take it right back to earlier in the year, and maybe wherever you think your preparation started for this WOC, and maybe give us a little bit of a rundown of how you prepared for WOC more generally in the last maybe 12 months or however long the period's been.
Yeah, well, I guess if we're going right back, then this preparation for this WOC goes all the way back to 2019, because that's, this WOC was meant to happen in 2020. So obviously we were preparing 2019 and stuff. And actually Peter Hodgkinson and I went on a small training camp in Denmark in like the second half of 2019. So that was, I guess, sort of where it started, just getting a feel for the terrains and stuff. But then obviously COVID and all that happened, so that was put on hold for quite a while. And I got pretty badly injured over COVID from the end of 2020 for 6 months or so, and didn't really get back to running until the end of 2021. Really, I got some good months in before the null season in 2021, but then had a bit of a patchy second half of that year. But so then starting 2021 was, end of 2021, starting 2022 was when I really got back to training and started looking forward to races, because there was also the possibility of actually being able to run 2022, whereas we knew in 2021 that we wouldn't be able to run WOC, so it was hard to get the motivation to really put in good training. But yeah, so I guess it started 4 Peaks, or just before 4 Peaks, a couple of weeks was sort of when that sort of kicked me into gear a bit, got a bit of a kickstart on the training, and then everything, I've been very grateful. Everything since then has worked quite well. A couple of small niggles, obviously I got COVID, but everybody's had COVID, so that doesn't even really count. But it was a few from 4 Peaks, which was, I can't actually remember, was it start of 2021 or start of 2022?
January this year.
Yeah, so start of 2022 up until May this year was just really solid. Just after Gold Coast, I had really good months of training through there, and then I had a few COVID whatever, but that was from then. The main part of the training block was done. It was just about fine-tuning and tapering after that.
Yeah, so it sounds like a nice consistent block of training for say 4 months, and then you were able to sort of do some good racing in there as well, and then fine tune it once you got over to Europe. I think I saw you do some really specific sprint sessions, and maybe this was getting in May or maybe around the competition, the null season. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the sprint training or the sort of sprint running training that you did?
Yep. Yeah. So just the main block I did after January was just a lot of regular running training, and then just before the null season, I started doing these more sprint specific sessions, like you just said. In Melbourne, unfortunately, I've probably run on every single sprint map we have, multiple times. So there's only so much gain I can get from running a sprint training on one of these maps, because I know it, so it's not quite the same. So instead, you can sort of do these physical sprint trainings, which give you, really good benefit for this physical side of sprints, like cornering, accelerating, stopping to turn around and all that sort of stuff, stairs and that. Which, if you were doing a regular sprint training with a map, you might not be able to get as much of a gain because you're not running as fast versus if you're just running. So the sessions that I did was I made this loop. For those that live in Melbourne, they probably know the Kew Asylum map up on top of the hill near the river. I made a loop around there, about 1 kilometer, up and down stairs, turns, tight turns, couple of steep uphill, steep downhill, everything that you could want for a sprint sort of circuit. And I treated it as a 1K interval. So I started off just doing 4 times 1K because I was not fit enough to do any more. But towards the end, just before I was leaving, I was doing many more than that and at faster pace. And it was nice to see because I did the same session, or it's the exact same loop, but, you know, I did it probably 5-6 times before I left for Europe. So it was nice to see that like my times on the loop were getting faster and faster. I made a Strava segment as well, so I could track that.
Sorry, I realised I was muted. I was just trying to find, I was seeing if I could find it to show people, but when you're maybe talking about the next thing, I'll see if I can find it. But yeah, it sounds like you did sort of a combination of the pure running training and then some specific stuff. I know like maybe you haven't put the fastest 5K time down that you could do, but compared to the top guys, potentially your 5K is a lot slower. How important do you think that those other skills in terms of the cornering and the acceleration and that sort of stuff, do you think that's like a key part of how you've had success?
Yeah, I guess it is a huge part of it, because obviously you need to be able to run, but then, you know, every 5 seconds you're doing something that's not running in a straight line, whether it's just a simple corner around a building, or, you know, as far as going down some steps or doing a full 180 out of the control and completely changing direction. So it's obviously a huge part of it. But yeah, obviously the flat 5K speed is obviously massive as well. And yeah, I did a 5K in, was it March or something like that? And I ran almost 2 minutes slower than like Tim Robertson. So that was a bit worrying, but I think I've gotten faster since then. And then, yeah, optimized the speed that I've had, I guess, I would say. Like, so I might not be able to run as fast as them, but hopefully the cornering doesn't tire me out maybe as much as it would, you know, Yannick Michaels or somebody like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, and I think that's a key thing to probably take away, is that yes, that pure speed is really important, but there's other capacities that you need to be able to have to be successful at sprint orienteering. And I think probably saw it a lot for those that watch the knockout, with people being able to make moves and kick and be agile. It made the difference between getting it through a round and not getting through. So it's it's really interesting. Look, let's chat about maybe the preparation just before WOC started, maybe between when you got to Europe and sort of raced WOC. What were the sort of things that you were working on there?
So you're talking like the last week in before WOC?
Yeah, or like last 2-3 weeks, like what sort of things were you working on, and maybe preparation is physical as well as sort of like looking at the maps and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So in the last weeks leading into WOC, I was lucky enough to have a whole bunch of races to do pretty much every weekend. Like, I think starting about a month out, I had the World Cup in Sweden, and then I can't remember the exact order, but I think then it was I had maybe there was a week off, but then I went Danish champs, sprint, British champs, sprint, WOC. So it was great to have these, like in both of these races. Obviously the World Cup, there was a great field, but at both of the other races, there was a really, really strong field as well. So it was great to get those sort of racing experiences out of the way. Like at the World Cup, I did pretty poorly, and I was just like sort of rust busting. And then at the next one I did slightly better, and the next one I did slightly better. And it was just getting those races out of the way, getting maybe some nerves or some bad habits, or, you know, just fine tuning basically those last couple weeks. And then obviously there was trainings thrown in amongst those races. It was more, I'd say shorter, maybe more sprint specific. So I don't think I did an interval session. I don't think I've done a proper interval session since I arrived at Europe. Arrived in Europe. They're all sprint specific or sprint training or sprint race. So it's just really building on the running fitness that I had and just turning all of that into sprint fitness.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, and I think that's like, to me, it looked like a really well executed final phase, and for those people that maybe have coaches or that are coaches may have sort of done something similar in the past, where they have that sort of general prep phase and then a bit more specific prep, and then that final phase is literally as competition like as possible. And I think always probably done that well, but the execution in terms of doing some of those sprint specific sessions. But obviously some of those races over there were really good as well. Cool. All right. Well, let's maybe touch on let's talk about the sprint. Tell us about the sprint qual. How did that race go, and was it what you expected, and what was the game plan after that?
Yeah. Right. So the sprint call, obviously before the sprint call, we'd had I'd run the relay and the knockout. So again, I had like just a couple more races under my sleeve to really help the preparation. I think that was key. Like if the sprint was the first race of the week, probably wouldn't have sort of done what I did, but just having those 2 extra races was really nice. Yeah. So the sprint qual, there was no old map, but everybody had made a map. So, we knew where the finish was, and we knew where the quarantine was, and we knew how far it was from the quarantine to the start. So, we made good guesses of where we thought the start would be and the style of the course. And I assume most people have seen the map. It was different to the sprint final in that it was like sort of housing estate blocks, these big rectangle buildings. They sort of made these courtyards, and they had obviously some fences and some big long route choices and stuff like that. So that was exactly what we thought it was going to be. My race was actually a shocker, to be honest. It was the worst race I had all week. And the sprint qual, 15 people get through from each heat. And I knew from the knockout that if I had a decent race, I would probably be through without too much trouble. But after I made quite a few mistakes, I had to really put my foot down and be going, like treating it like it was a final, basically full gas, because I had lost a lot of time. And luckily I managed to scrape through. I think I got in by 10 or 15 seconds or something. So not very much. But I guess the sprint qual for a sprint race, it doesn't matter if you're a late starter or an early starter. So the sprint qual was just about getting through. If you get through in 15th, it's the same as getting through in first. It doesn't really make a difference. So it was just immediately after the sprint qual, I was just trying to just forget about that race. I had a bad race, but I'm through the final. So whatever, it doesn't matter. Just reset basically.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously, I don't know if everyone here had seen, but compared to your qualification in the knockout, where you were first, was it a struggle to sort of refocus compared to what was the difference between your feelings after the knockout qual and the sort of sprint individual qual?
Well, the knockout qual was, I had a much better race, and it was, across the line, and Per Forsberg said I was leading, and it was, much nicer and obviously much more chill. And the sprint qual, across the line, and I was like, okay, I'm in 8th or 9th or whatever, but there's still a lot of people to come. So I was obviously angry and a bit upset, oh crap, am I not going to make it through? And there was a bit of stress for the next 30 minutes while the rest of the people were finishing. And then, but it still had to, get the food in, get the water in, do the cool down. And then once I knew that I was through, then it was just try to completely forget about this race and move on to the next one. So I think I was able to sort of, reset pretty well and not worry about the qual in the morning.
Yeah. Okay. So psychologically, you sort of just put it out of your mind, focus on the next race. What about the mistakes you made? Did you sort of analyze them at all in terms of how you could change for the final, or was it completely you'd done the preparation, you already knew what you had to do, and those were just mistakes that were made, and it was just don't even worry about them?
No, there was a little bit of I analyzed it in not much, because I didn't want to be thinking about it too much, but I just sort of analyzed the style of mistake that I made, because it was pretty consistent throughout. I made most of my mistakes was missing gaps or misreading the map. So all of them were missing a gap or not seeing a wall related. So it's not reading the map properly, not using my magnifier when I need to, that sort of thing. So I knew the style of mistake. In a way, it was actually good for the final, because it gave me a bit of a wake up call. I think before that, like in the relay and in the knockout qual, I had a couple of good runs and maybe gotten a bit complacent and just thought there was going to work out. So the the sprint individual qual where I made those mistakes was a good wake up call. So I like knew that I could still make those mistakes. And so I was more on it in the final, more aware of potentially making that mistake. So I thought about it and didn't.
Yeah, cool. Was there any? I've just got the tracking. Was there any sort of specific errors in this qual race that were important to take forward to the final, or
so
anything that went well, even the opposite of that?
Yeah. So I made. I guess I won't go through the whole run because we'll be here for hours. But I made two very small mistakes at number 2 and number 3, just misreading the control circle. So number 2, I thought it was on the inside of those 2 black walls, but it was on the outside. And then that put me under a little bit of pressure to number 3. So I just ran outside on the wrong side of the building to number 3. And then obviously we had this massive long leg. So I was not prepared for the long leg because I just made 2 small mistakes. Yeah, the GPS tracking is useless. You're not going to be able to tell at all.
Yeah.
I guess something that went well was I think I did the longer legs pretty well, like when you had to make these big route choice decisions and then run really fast. I think I did those quite okay. Like number 4, number 14, number 18 were not terrible. But the main mistake I made, I'm skipping over a few small ones at number 7. I made a small one misreading the hedges. But the first big one I made was to number 10, which is just off the screen slightly, I think. So you won't see it on the GPS tracking, or you have to go back a little bit because the GPS tracking is way out of sync. Yeah, you can just see it there, that little. So I punched the control about now, and then it didn't quite get it all, but I ran into that. If you just look to the east of the actual number 9, yeah, so down one of those alleyways just there. No.
You went down here.
Yeah, there. I went down that one with the little wall at the very end of it, and I just missed that wall, the black wall at the end of it, and just ran down that. I probably ran halfway down, and then I saw the wall in real life and was like, "Wait a minute, that's closed. What's going on?"
Yeah, okay.
And then obviously I had to turn around and go back, and that was a very stressful like realization, seeing the wall and looking at the map and going, "It's closed," and knowing that the sprint qual was pretty tight to get in, and making that mistake after not having a great run so far was there was some adrenaline in my blood after that. So I was running a bit faster potentially, and which maybe caused the mistake to number 12, which was the next mistake, the biggest mistake I made. Yeah, so I got all those, the next few, a couple easy, but number 12. So that, if you just pause it there for a second, obviously you can see this control, you can just go straight through that gap right into it. Like there's no 2 ways about it. But in our preparation, we knew, so this is like a children's playground, and these bridges, things that they've mapped are like sort of tunnely, sort of tubey things, that you get in playgrounds that kids crawl through. So the one just south of number 11 and the one just northeast of number 11 are like these tubes that I'm surprised they even map them, to be honest. So you can't really get through those. But the one that goes to number 12 is that's just a regular sort of bridgey thing. You can run across that easily. So in our preparation, we knew that part of the map would be used, but we weren't sure if they would actually map that bridge or like use that bridge. So when I was running into number 11 and planning the route to number 12, I was aware that this bridge has been mapped, but is it blocked off or not? And I originally read it as it wasn't blocked and that you could run through it. And then as I got a bit closer, I thought I saw somebody sort of run towards the bridge and then run away, as in like they've run to it and realized it was blocked and they've run away. And then when I took another look at the map, I thought I saw that black wall go all the way across. So I was like, oh, it is blocked. So then it's a route choice, left or right. So I, went left, but I lost about 20 to 25 seconds on that one. That was really a big one.
Okay, so and is that all route choice? Is time? Is that so? Like,
yeah, I didn't make any mistake on the route choice I took. It was just like I ran 100% further than I needed to, sort of thing.
Yeah, sure. And in terms of just like another question in this map, and it's probably relevant to the final as well, in terms of these small things on the map, were you using a magnifier or was it
Yeah,
legible
so
enough to be able to read?
it was quite legible. Like that 1 to number 12 was probably the most difficult to see. It was the magnifier. I should have been using it much more on this course, and I didn't. And that was potentially one of the reasons that I made, well, definitely that mistake to number 12. If I'd flicked the magnifier on, I would have seen that it was open and run through it, but I didn't. So I think I was being a little bit lazy and a little bit overconfident that I would be like, it would all work out in the end, and it didn't. So yeah, as I said before, I think in a way this was actually a really good wake-up call for the final, making me a bit more alert to these sort of mistakes that anybody can make at any time.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that was a nice little overview of the qual. So how you finished in, what was it, ninth, you said?
I think, yeah, equal ninth.
So then you were sort of starting about midfield,
Starting in
but
the
first half of the field. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, maybe that sort of nice leads us on to the sprint final. Run us through what you were feeling going in, and then I guess you can sort of just start telling us about the race.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with that. At this point in the sprint call, my legs were feeling pretty beat up. You know, we'd run the relay, which was just a regular race, but then in the knockout, you know, I had 3 pretty much 100, like 1,500-meter races basically. And so my legs were pretty beat up in the morning of the sprint qual, and I was feeling that. So that was the main thing on my mind after the sprint qual, was just getting home and getting some recovery and eating, drinking, getting my legs up, cold shower sort of thing, and just trying to make them, you know, even if it doesn't actually make a difference, just making them like, you know, feel better in my mind. So, you know, even if they're not moving faster, they just feel a little bit nicer. And so, yeah, I went back to the hotel, had a bit of a sleep, cold shower, food, water, all that sort of, you know, the basic stuff. So then when it was time to go to the quarantine for the final, I was actually feeling, even though I hadn't started warming up yet, I was actually feeling a bit better, more rested than I was in the morning. So that was a nice way to start the sprint final, couple of hours, I guess. And then for the sprint final, we were in the same quarantine as we were in the qual, and we knew that. But this time we had to take like a little shuttle to the start just before our start. So 20 minutes before we were meant to start, you took a shuttle. So we didn't know where the start was going to be. That was sort of the whole point. Everybody in their right mind had guessed that it was going to be an arena start, because if you look at the last, you know, since 2017, I think it's been an arena start for sprint finals. And, you know, you just assume that it would be an arena start, but it was not. They took us to this place on the map that we'd actually run through on the qual, out near number 8 and 9 on my course. So it was actually nice knowing exactly where we were. And from the map that we had, I sort of knew which bit we would be starting into, and I knew it was going to be, they'd have that big route choice that they had to number 2. They must have had something like that coming almost from the start. I was a bit worried that it was going to be the first control, because I knew the spot we were in, and I knew the sort of control that they can set from that spot. But it was nice, at least they gave us one control as a bit of a warm-up. But just going back, go back a little bit before the start. In the warm-up, it was, my legs were feeling like much nicer than they did in the morning, you know, which probably doesn't make any difference to how fast I was running, but it's just nice to feel a bit better. And it was also, even though I started quite early, it was also nice to have, you know, a few other big names around me that had also maybe not done the best in the qual. Like I think I had, you know, Daniel Hubman was starting before me, and Soren Trana Odom was starting before me, and Mika Kermler from Finland, and all those sort of guys. So it was doing not the best in the qual, you know, didn't put me off at all, because I knew that like qual doesn't actually really matter as long as you get through the final. So it's just how you get in the final. Should I talk about the sprint race or?
Yeah. It was, I guess, a couple of things I was just thinking about there in terms of, I think that was something that the WOC organisers did throughout the week in terms of trying to keep the competitors guessing, that I've never seen at this level before. Were people surprised by that? Was it I guess you would have known that it was coming in the bulletins, but I guess the other thing where they were opening up backyards and that sort of stuff, did did anyone appear to be sort of a little bit like phased by it, or was everyone sort of just going, "Oh, it's part of it"?
Yeah, I'm not sure. There was not too much talking going on after you got on the shuttle bus, to be honest. Most people were just running in circles around this little warm-up area that we had. So I didn't get to speak to many people, but I don't think anybody was really too stressed about not having an arena start, or like, obviously everybody knew they were going to open and close just so many backyards that made the map that you've made pretty much not useful at all, other than like the general sort of vibe. So, I mean, I think everybody knew that going in, and knew that there are so many gates that they could just open and so many gates that they could just shut. It's really just going to depend on the day and what they've done. So it was,
Yeah,
in a way, it was difficult to be as prepared as you usually can be for like a big sprint. And yeah, this year we hadn't done as much prep as we had done, let's say, for JWOC in 2019. We were nowhere near as prepared, in a way, because we knew that they were going to, for this race especially, they were going to be just opening and closing. So like memorizing a map could almost be like detrimental in a way. If you go, I know there's a gap through here, but on the race day they've shut that gate and then you've buggered it, sort of thing. So
is that something you knew going in to the races, like this before the sprint relay? Did people know or think that might happen, or was that a bit of a surprise for people, and people knew after the sprint relay that it was going to happen?
That they were going to shut and close, open and close gates, sort of thing.
Yeah, like, was it referred to anywhere in the bulletins or team meetings or anything like that?
It wasn't in any of those, not that I can remember, but everybody knew, because in the trainings that they offer, a lot of the trainings that they set, they wanted you to run on like a certain time, like on the official training camps, because they had to open up gates and stuff for the training.
Okay.
So if you went out and did the training, like a month later, half of those gates that you were meant to run through on the training would just be shut. So everybody sort of knew that they had the ability to do that, and if they were doing it for trainings, then they could definitely do it for the races. So
yeah, interesting. Okay, cool. All right. Well, let's maybe get into the actual race. I'm happy for you to sort of talk about it how you want, and we can maybe talk about some of the key legs, but maybe just start with the overall of the race, and then we can nail in on some specific legs after that.
Yeah, so I guess the race was decided by a few of these longer legs, which cost, if you pick the wrong route, it could be costly. So not getting those wrong, or not getting them too wrong, and then obviously the rest of it trying to limit your time losses through the I'd say the shorter, trickier sort of legs. I can screen share potentially, Brody, so then I can use my mouse. Maybe that would be easier.
Yeah. I've got map up, but if you want to screen share, it's probably easier because you can show the big stuff.
I have the map up as well. I'm pretty sure. I just can't.
I'll just drop the World of O analysis in the chat as well, so people can sort of reference it. It's quite good to have a look at if you want. Well, oops, didn't send it. Send it to Pat.
Can everybody see this one? I assume you guys can see this.
Yeah, it's up now.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so we the bus dropped us off here. I'm hoping you can see my cursor as well.
Yeah, we've got the cursor.
Yeah, good. So the bus dropped us off here, and that mistake that I made on the qual was this alleyway here. So I'd already run through here, so I knew exactly where we were. And then we were warming up in this little area, and then they walked us through this building, which is like a university library or something like that. And we popped out on the other side. So I knew that this part of the map here was going to be really like difficult, and they could easily do, what they did to number 2, just this long leg where you have to, it's quite difficult to find a route through. This bit here, this like tricky bit that lots of people either found or didn't find, I did know it existed, but actually I'll come back to it when we get to leg number 2. So, I mean, you can see the course on a whole is, there's fences everywhere. And like this second half here is, there were these long route choices, these fences, alleyways. And it was, I thought it was a really good sprint, actually. Like, I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I thought it was like tricky and, the good winning time. And some good routes, and I thought it was just, all round pretty decent. It's often for a championship sprint, you can get quite a boring sprint, like, easy course. They want to make it fair, as fair as possible. So it ends up being quite boring, but I thought this one was pretty good. Something just popped up on my computer. Let me just close
I think in general, I think the WOC organisers weren't afraid to make hard courses, and it was good to see the qualification races actually being difficult for once. So hopefully future WOC organisers follow the same tune, because it's nice to, like, it's not a bad thing if one of the big people misses out. I don't think now, where there's so much depth that there's other people there to take their place.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really fun. Like, it was enjoyable as well. It was a nice town. Like, the alleyways and stuff were quite picturesque, and the arena was a nice atmosphere, and obviously the water crossing was, you could call it unnecessary, but it was a bit of fun, I guess.
It was a good photo opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's the only reason they put it in, because the water, it ends just here. We could have just run down the path, but whatever. Anyway, I guess we start with the course. So this little bit where we pre-started was just like a little, alcove thing in the building, and you couldn't see anything, and that was the whole point, I think. Like, they had a big screen in the way because we were in the building, and we moved up, as the minutes counted down, and then we came out and we couldn't see anything. There was a big screen in the way. And then when you got to the map, you could see that you had to turn a corner, so you still couldn't see anything, which I thought was good. And you had to, the beeps go down, you pick up the map, and you had these twisty corners, and, trying to flip the map and get it the right way and find the first control, and, seeing that it's this really short one, and then out the corner of your eye, seeing that you've got this massive one coming up was a bit stressful. But I figured that I'm probably not going to have time to plan number 2 on the way to number 1. So I didn't even worry about it. I just made sure I got number 1 and then stopped at number 1 and looked at number 2, which is not usually what I try to do, but I figured, like, they've done this on purpose. They're setting us up for this big route. It's the first and second control. I don't really have time to look at number 2 on the way to number 1, so I'm just going to stop at number 1. And I had made that decision about halfway to number 1 when I saw it out the corner of my eye that we had this monster leg, and that I still had to, it required, number 1 still required my attention just to find the thing. So it came out, across this bridge, and then ran through here and wiggled into the control, and then stopped at number 1 for, I don't know, probably the longest that I've stopped in a sprint for as long as I can remember. It felt like forever. It was probably only a few seconds, but it just felt like forever, standing completely still, trying to find a route. It was quite like stressful. And I knew that there was a way through here somewhere because it was on, like, the map that we had, and, like, I knew if they had bothered mapping the yellow behind the buildings, I knew that there must be a way through there. And then I saw, like, that you sort of had to come in from this direction, and this all sort of lined up really well. But I was just standing here and I couldn't find a way through here, and I didn't want to risk it and run that way to figure it out later, and then there not actually be a gap, and then have to come all the way around, or whatever the other options were. So I stood here and I just couldn't see a way through. So I figured, well, then if I can't find a way through, I know I'm missing something, but I can't find it. I'm not willing to risk it all on the second control, running out of direction and then figuring it out later. So I went, well, okay, I'm going to go south here. And it's, I might lose. I've definitely lost a lot of time. This was my worst leg, I think, on the whole course. But, I guess I didn't lose the race. Let me just go this one so we can see. So I came, well, you can see the GPS isn't too bad here. I came out through this gap and along, and then around. I didn't cut this corner. I was planning to cut that corner, but when I got to here, it looked like quite slow, soft, like deep gravel. So I figured I'd just go all the way around the outside. And then I came through past number 4, and then in through this gap here. So I think I lost, like, something along the lines of about 15 seconds on this leg.
Yeah, it looks like fastest was 1:30.
Fastest was, I think,
1:30.
The guy that ran fastest was Howald, I think.
Yeah, so 1:30, and you did 1:42, so it's 12 seconds.
12 seconds, all
right. But
so that was the fastest coming through this gap. But then you can look at people like Tim, if I'm just trying to find his name. Robertson, there it is. Tim lost 30 seconds, and that was his race over by running. Obviously he either misread an alleyway or thought he saw a gap in this one, ran in, and his race is over at the second control, which was what I was trying to avoid, kind of. Yeah. So, I mean, this sort of flat running gave me a moment to sort of just chill out a bit, because the start was obviously very stressful and I had to stop, and I was stressed trying to get on with it, and just gave me a bit of time to chill out. And I would say look at the next leg, but I couldn't look at the next leg because we already had a map flip at number 2, which I thought was bonkers. Like, it was, they did it on purpose again they were trying to surprise us and stuff, but that was not what I expected at all. I guess that's exactly what they were trying to do. So yeah, having a map flip at number 2 was very, very unexpected. And then having this really short leg, a couple of really short legs immediately after the map flip, you think what they've been doing on the trainings and stuff is hiding a long leg with the map flip. So as soon as you flip the map, they give you this big, like, stinking long leg. So they like try to give you less time to prepare for it. And to be honest, I'm really happy that they just gave us a couple of normal legs after the map flip, not some big monster, which I felt like that was a bit more fair than hiding a long leg with a map flip and then, that long leg being decisive. So I thought that was a bit nicer of them.
That was a map flip though, not a pick up a map, yeah?
Not a map flip. So I flipped the map when I came into, I think when I was running down, if I just bring me back up, when I was running down from this alleyway, down this street, when I saw when I could see this alleyway, when I was on the street, I'm pretty sure from memory, that's when I flipped. Because I knew that all I had to do was go through and turn left.
Yeah, and the control was going to be on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And when I flipped it and saw that it was an easy one, I didn't have to worry too much. So I think I actually flipped it back because I saw that it was just going to be a really short, easy one. And then flipped it back again when I spotted the control, I think. Yeah. It's hard to remember. It was. Yeah. But yeah, so these next few were just a couple sort of, execution, you can call them 3 to 4 was maybe a 50-50 sort of thing. I don't know, you could have come this way, but I picked this way. No big deal, really. And then, number 5, number 6, number 7, they're all not that tricky. There's this fake fence here and you have to come either back and around or go through and do a lap around this building sort of thing. And I think this one wasn't decisive. It was just, making sure you've got the right, these alleyways were, this one would have been very easy to run down. This one would have had a wall, but it would have been very easy to miss this one and run down this one. This way, I guess you can't really miss it because you're just running around this building, but there was so many places where you could go wrong, and it was just it felt like more like a middle distance sort of style where you're just trying not to make a mistake and just trying to get around. Whereas at sprint often is, you got to run you're running as fast as possible, and you're not really worried about making a mistake. But this one felt a lot like trying to not make a mistake and hold on for as long as possible without making a mistake. Because this first part especially was really hard. It got a bit easier in the end, but this first part was really difficult. So 5, 6, 7, they're all just some, GPS is not much chop, so you're not going to be able to tell too much, but I came this way, and then in here I jumped off this wall here, which was a bit scary because there was 3 officials standing here. And so I had to double check my map a few times to make sure it was passable, because it's why are there so many officials standing here? Are they going to try and catch me out for jumping an uncrossable wall? But obviously that one's crossable. And then 6, I went, through here and back this way. And it was quite busy running through these alleyways. As you can see, probably I've already run through this one twice, and I could have run through it 3 times if I had gone this way to number 4. So there was a lot of people going in and out of here. So it was a bit, I didn't hit anybody, but I heard of some people that had some pretty bad collisions. So it's a bit, I was thinking about it a little bit. A couple more not crucial legs. And then obviously we have this huge leg through here. And given that 8 was not very hard, you just came in and turned left and took the first alleyway. I actually had a bit of time to get myself sorted for number 9. And this time I saw that you could actually, I finally found the gaps through this part of the map here. And I was, very happy to have seen that, even though I knew that it cost me a lot of time on the first control, because I knew I was missing a route. On the second control, I knew I was missing a route, but I found it now. So I figured, well, at least I got one of them. And, you know, I saw that this way there's this thing, and, you know, it wasn't so great. And I saw at the very end that I had to come up I wanted to come on this side. So I figured, well, if I can get out to this bit here, that looks like a pretty smooth route. And of course, you know, on a leg this long, there's obviously luck involved, because it's impossible to, you know, when you're running, it's impossible to find the shortest route every time, especially, you know, when the map is bouncing, you don't get that much time to look at it. And there's so many things happening. You get like, you know, maybe you get one glance at each route and then you have to pick the better one. So there's obviously luck involved in finding the shortest route every time. But I guess I could say that I maybe got a bit lucky here, and I just picked this one because I thought it looked quite smooth. Like you just sort of head out on this line sort of out there, like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't have my split time on this leg was nothing special, but I think that's because in the beginning, the other guys were really, really running quite fast. I lost quite a lot of time to let's say like the spectator. I was quite a long way behind. I don't know how that happened. I think maybe the other guys were just really going for it in the beginning, and maybe I was not doing that, which, you know, maybe cost me a few seconds, but it maybe meant that I could push a bit harder in the last 5 minutes, which is where I seemed to gain a few places. So yeah, not sure about that. So anyway, I don't think anybody like lost the race on this leg. I think Ralph took something similar. I think Casper maybe went straight, but he still had a good leg. I don't think there was too much in the, so Casper went that option, and I think he still beat me on the leg. So even though I think on the World of O analysis, it said that this way was faster. I actually have that open. We can just quickly look at. So that was the second leg. You can see for those who haven't looked at World of O, the darker the green, the better. So the ones going to the right where I went is obviously, there's no dark green there, so it's quite bad. And the ones that wiggled through are much better. Just scroll through a few of these here, yeah. So we can see that here, they've done the top 6. So a few people went through here and then went that way. I'm the red one. I went around like that. So I lost time compared to the other guys, even though I thought I picked a pretty good route. And then Casper and looks like, I don't know who else went through the middle here. So, you know, a long leg, but didn't look like it was decisive in the end, unlike the second leg, which cost quite a lot of time if you went around. And then at this point, we had obviously number 10, which was just, you know, nothing. It was just getting to the spectator control. And then from here, we had, you can see where this line is here. This is a new, like a map exchange. So we ran here, we crossed the water, which was cool. You could hear Per Forsberg in the arena, blah, blah, whatever. And then you ran all the way around until here, and then you ditched your map. You threw it into a person that was standing there with a bin, and you picked up a new map from the map wall. Very much like a handing, like a relay when you pick up the map for your next runner, or after your runner tags you and you go and pick up your map off like the map wall sort of thing. Very similar to the Gold Coast night relay for those who ran that, the night sprint relay, where you ran along and just took your map off that fence thing. That exact same sort of thing, just took a new map. But then luckily you still had quite a run to go to the start triangle. So you had time to unfold the map, you know, orientate it and find the start triangle and everything. A couple of, you know, seemingly tricky ones, but they weren't that hard. You just had to get around these walls. And then on the way back, a bit of a route choice back around this water thing. I think this one was quite a lot faster to go left, some way left, whether you do the zigzag or whether you go out like that, or any of the left options, I think were faster than any of the right options. And I think this is the control where Chris Jones mispunched. For those watching the live stream, probably would have seen that Chris came in third and, you know, got a bronze medal, which was pretty cool, but then he mispunched afterwards. And I'm pretty sure it was this control here, where I think he ran on this path and just started looking at 13 and didn't turn into 12. So it wouldn't have cost him too much time to go back and get 12, unfortunately, but I hate to see it, but I guess it is what it is sometimes. This part of the course, like on the start, when looking at, you know, you look at the control description before you start, I knew where the map exchange was going to be, because that, you know, on the control description, it tells you. So I knew that the map exchange was like before halfway at control number 10 to 11, and we had 22 controls. So I figured it's at least like the latest it will be is probably halfway. So after the the arena run through or the map exchange, there's still a lot of course to go. So I had to make sure I wasn't, you know, gassed by the time I got there. But then after that, I can remember telling myself on the way to 13, like, okay, I've done the map exchange. It's time to put your foot down now and try and like spend all your energy. Because at this point, I was actually feeling quite good. I guess we hadn't been running for too long to this point. So I guess that's why, like, yeah, only like 7 minutes to the map exchange. So that's like halfway, I guess. We have, you know, a couple of route choices here. This wasn't, I mean, it was faster to go to the north here, but I don't think it was race ending for anybody that went to the south. I think most of the guys that finished at the top went to the north though, so maybe it was. Oh, do you have any like questions or anything, Brody, or any questions in the chat? Or
At this stage,
keep talking through the course?
Nah, keep going. At this stage, we might see if anyone has any questions. Maybe start posting them in the chat, whether it's to do with this or something else. But I reckon just keep going through it. Really interesting.
All right. Yeah. This part of the map was this little block here, this curvy block, was what they gave us in the, like, on the old maps. Like, they gave us a little snippet. I think it was actually an old map that somebody had made, so they had to give it to us anyway. But this was the main snippet of the map that we had. So this is what we were sort of basing before we had made like a map and stuff. This is what we were basing, you know, what we thought it was going to be like off. So we knew it was going to be this style of alleyways and these like behind the houses sort of hedges and car parks and all that sort of messy kind of stuff. So we knew, we knew they were going to put fences across like this, exactly like this. So means you have to come like back and around or through, or, you know, do this sort of wiggling around. Like those style of route choices we were ready for, I would say, and like quite well prepared for that sort of style from all the trainings that we'd done. Like, even without looking at this map specifically, you can get, if you look at the training maps, you get this exact, you know, style of route choice. You know, every third or fourth control you get that thing. So you are, for the people that had done some training or at least looked at the training maps, you were really well prepared for seeing, just like, you know, spotting the route choices where you have to come like back and around and avoid these fences. You know, it takes a bit of training, I guess. And for those that had done that, I guess it was second nature to look in the right spots for the routes. It was, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I don't really know how to explain it. It's like a style of route choices that they seem to have been setting, like this one, and then the same with like number 19 as well. And was like number what is it, numbers 5, 4, 5, 6. It's sort of all the same style where there's the fences, but you sort of have to like, yeah. Sorry, I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this, but it's,
I think sort of what you're saying is like where you've got to go like quite far away from the line of the leg to at some point on the leg, like,
yeah,
or often back out of a control. And I know they were doing that in the knockout quite a bit, which people don't like doing.
Yeah, it feels often unnatural. Like this leg specifically to number 14. I will just do my thing. It was fastest to come. The GPS is completely useless here, so I'll get rid of it. But it was fastest to come this way here and around and all the way through like that. And I mean, if you're looking at it, you're going towards the control and then you're turning, and then all of a sudden you're going completely backwards away from the control, which feels quite unnatural, I would say. And then you're running along and coming towards it. Versus like if you sort of kept heading towards the control, which feels natural, all of a sudden you got this like almost, it's like, it's not a trap because you can still get through, but it is a trap because it's costing you time in the end. So sort of seeing the route all the way through and not making your decision based on like what's closest to the line, trying to like put a control point at 13 and a control point at 14 and taking the line that joins them away in your mind and then making a decision. So your decision is obviously not based on which route stays closer to the line for the longest. It's which one is the shortest or the fastest. So trying to, because this one looks really tempting, like, oh yeah, it's right on the line. It's got to be really fast. And then at the end, you do this like big thing here. Whereas this one, you're turning completely the wrong direction away from the line at the beginning, which just feels completely wrong, even though it's actually the fastest. So sort of training your eyes or, you know, mind to be okay with that uncomfortable feeling of feeling like you're running a long way away from the line or backwards or something like that. It's Jimbo's just asked, was the map all a personalized map? No, it was not. So they just had like 5 or 6 maps on the map wall, and you just grabbed one of them. It didn't matter which one. And then they put another map on the map wall after you grabbed it for the next person. So it's just grab any. They made that very clear in the bulletin in the team leaders meeting, just to grab any map on the wall. This next section was a bit of a surprise, to be honest. Like we've only got 22 controls, and they've done 1, 2, 3, 4 of them very, very simple. Like 15, there's only one route. 16, there's only one route. 17, there's only one route. And 18 is obviously just this one in the park. Like, doesn't get much. This is like, you know, a men's 12 or women's 12, women's 10 level course, which is quite surprising. But obviously they were setting you up for this decisive leg. This one was quite decisive, I think, for a lot of people. Like, if you came, you had to basically go north, and the options were, the best option was to go directly north and through here and like that, and then like around the back like that, or the next best was to come that sort of way, which was slower, but it was still better than any option going straight, because again, like kind of what I said, where this option feels like it's following the line really well, and then you sort of just get stuck out like this, out the side there. So having to, you know, see the route that, you know, maybe makes you feel uncomfortable because it's going all the way out here, it is actually the shortest. So trying to see the, you know, as I said before, not judging your routes based on how close one is to the line, just trying to see the whole route, like the route as a whole, and picking the shortest one, the shortest line. On this leg, I'm quite annoyed because I actually saw this route out this way, which was the fastest. I think Gustav Bergman took it, and like I'm not sure if it was decisive for him, because I think he was already clear into second place, but you know, it didn't help his chances anyway. That route out there, you know, the GPS isn't actually too bad there, but you can see through there, you know, and through that little gap, and then up to the road, and then in. I saw this route, but it was too late because I had seen this route first, and then I got to about here before I'd seen it. So like just before the junction here, and I thought, oh, bugger, I can't go back now. So I just have to commit to the one that I'm on. I went, yeah, through the middle there. You can see I lost quite a lot of time to Bergman on this leg, although the GPS is quite shoddy. So who knows what the actual time gap is. But I lost a bit of time to Bergman. But I guess the important thing for me on this leg was that I gained time on people that tried to go straight. And I think that was like guys like Ralph went straight, and Maddie K, Matthias Kieberts went straight. And I think these were some crucial seconds that meant that I managed to, you know, just beat them in the end, because they lost a little bit of time on this route choice. Yeah, I can't find it straight. There it is. Yeah, so Ralph even came backwards out of control and lost plus 12. Okay, only a few seconds then. Maybe I'm wrong, but it felt like it, like on the day that they lost quite a lot of time by going out this way, but maybe it wasn't as much as I thought. And then once you punch 19, at number 19, I actually punched at the same time as the French guy that started 1 minute before him. I hadn't really seen him at all the whole race, and he came in from the side where Ralph and Maddie K came in from. So he must have done some sort of route this way and lost a bit of time. And I'd seen glimpses of him like on the course. I think at the Spectator when I was here, as I was rounding here, I could like see him, you know, either going to 12 or going to 11 or something. So I knew I was catching him, but I hadn't really seen him at all until this point, and we punched at the same time. So that was nice confidence boost with, you know, there's only 1 or 2 minutes left on the course, and it was nice to have caught him and get that bit of confidence to push the last 500 meters, really push myself, you know, because, you know, I know I've caught this guy, so I'm not doing terribly. So that was, you know, nice. And then these last ones, there's nothing really to them. It was pretty simple. Like, as long as you found the alleyways, like as long as you found this alleyway and that alleyway, there was not much really to it. And then it was just trying to run as fast as possible in the end. And it was, overall, I thought it was a pretty good course. Like, this section in here was, you know, I don't know. I think they did it on purpose to set you up for 19, but overall, I thought it was pretty fun. pretty tricky. And, you know, luckily for me, it suited me well. There was lots of twisting and turning. So even though it looks like, you know, there's these long legs, most of the time it felt like you were twisting and turning. So the guys with much faster legs maybe didn't get a chance to really stretch away from me. I could sort of hang on to them while we were twisting and turning, and they didn't really get that opportunity to really put the foot down. Whereas in maybe a more like regular championship sprint, they would have just run away from me more than what they did. So yeah, I thought it was really fun.
Fingers crossed this becomes a regular.
Yeah. Well, the sprint last year in Czech Republic looked really, really fun. I was annoyed not to be running that one, but so hopefully they like that one and this one from now on.
Yeah, I think that the Danes did such a good job of the course setting, and then obviously for those that watched the live coverage, it was just a massive step up, I thought. So it was, yeah, hopefully that's taken through. I got a couple of questions. I think Toby was asking how you approach a long route choice. I'm not sure if he asked that before you were talking about trying to ignore the line. But is there anything else? And maybe he was talking about 19. Was there any particular like way that you approach a leg like that, apart from what you were saying?
Which one? Did you say number 19?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hadn't really thought about it too much until like the last few months about how I sort of do a long route choice, because I don't know, I feel like it's a lot of experience. Like you do these legs and then you sort of just, you know, your brain looks for the patterns that you're used to seeing on these sort of long legs. But I mean, I tried to break it down a little bit into a few steps. So when I get a long leg like this, or any sort of route choice leg, even like leg number 14, I sort of try to look at the first thing I look at is the exit. So obviously there's this building in the way, we got to come this side of it or this side of it. And then I sort of go, okay, this side of it looks like is where I, you know, sort of leading me in the right direction. And then I'll, you know, skip back all the way to the control point and go, well, this is blocked, this is blocked, this is blocked. So I either have to come in from this spot here or all the way over here. And then I sort of go from the exit and the entry and sort of work my way towards the middle from end to end, and and then sort, you know, oh, that looks crap, that goes away. Okay, this entrance here doesn't look great, I will ignore it unless there's no way to get this way. So that one's gone. And then you sort of build a route from not in one direction, you know, not forwards, not backwards, but sort of from both ends in and meet in the middle somewhere. And then you sort of get, I found doing that way, I sort of get, it's easier in my mind to picture like the line of the route that I'm going to follow, and then like the other one. And then I can sort of, from that line, I can sort of maybe judge the distance a little bit. I find it a little bit easier to judge the distance because I do quite a lot of training, not a lot, but I use it sometimes. I'm going to put a link in the chat. There's this Finnish website, which is called Route Choice Game. Can you see this?
Yeah.
I'll do a couple. So it's like this. It's this simple program where it prompts you with a route, and you click left or you click right, and then you either get it wrong. So it says correct, the left route would have been 16% longer, and you took this many seconds. So I do this sometimes, you know, not heaps, but that one's wrong. And it just sort of to train your brain into, I try not to think about it too much. I try to do it as fast as possible to get that, like the sort of just the feeling of looking at a shape and seeing which way around this shape is going to be faster. Like in Thierry Georgiou's dad's book that he wrote, he mentioned something similar to this. He called it like the geometric eye, which is kind of what it is. You're trying to find the shortest route around these, you know, geometric shapes. So this was quite helpful. I'll put this in the chat.
Yeah, because I guess like on those longer routes, like you're saying, it's not that, like you could look at that leg and sit there for like 2 seconds and analyze it, but you want to make that analysis intuitive for those short parts, because on the long leg you have to add up multiple in one, so you can't spend 2 seconds looking at each.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like so if we go back to the map, and close that down. So like, you know, seeing that, yeah, I don't know, seeing like that I had to, this 13 to 14 is not a great example. I mean, it's a good example. I'm saying like they were doing what I'm doing. So the exit is like, looks like there's only one way to exit. Is this, so from here, and then, you know, I either have to enter from like these two alleyways or out the back here. And then it's sort of, you know, I'm going from a route choice from the end of this thing to either this point or either to that point, and then sort of, and then working my way back through each, and making lots of those little, like these decisions, these like sort of, you know, just regular route choices, making lots and lots of those in the process of making the long route choice. Yeah, so I obviously don't have time to think about all of these, like this style of route choice. I don't have time to think about that because I've got to worry about, like, so that one, I don't have time to think about if I want to go this way or this way. It just has to happen. And I just have to, you know to go that way so I can figure out the rest of the long leg.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
but
good.
I think it's mostly like picking the long legs and stuff is mostly just experience. So looking at maps like this one, just, you know, sitting on your computer, going through the course and going, I would go this way, I would go this way, trying not to think about it too much, trying to do it really quickly, like, you know, a race scenario. And then afterwards get the GPS tracking up and analyze it, go, oh, okay, actually this way was quicker because this way was quicker because it was shorter. This way was quicker because it was less turns, whatever, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think, like, if you've ever done any course setting or youth, it's sort of, we talk about thinking about it the way the course setter thinks about it. The reason that they set these legs so that you're not actually really starting the leg from where the control circle is. So they've done that on purpose so that your brain automatically looks at the line and tries to find the closest route to the line. But in reality, if you look at 18 to 19, you have to be to the north end of that. The control really starts at the north end of that building, or meters more north of where the controls, or like even back at that one. Yeah. So the lines are, and I think really interesting that you do that from both ends, because it can happen at both ends, which is, I think it's really key skill, and people can practice that easily because people set courses like that all the time. But also just this might be a good one to set some courses, either just for other people or even just to practice thinking like a course setter and seeing what it would look like if you just grab any old map or a map that you're going to run on in the future and practice setting some courses in terms of thinking about how you can make it challenging for the competitor. Then I think that's also probably going to be somewhat useful in this sense.
Yeah, no, exactly what you said, Brody. That's, I think if you want to practice, if these big long route choices is something that scares you, and, you know, I think it not scares you, but, you know, maybe worries you, or is obviously a huge part of sprint orienteering, and it's not my strongest suit. So doing this sort of training and this sort of training here has been really helpful, I think. And, you know, I didn't get all the route choices right, but apart from number 2, I didn't really get too many wrong. So I think that's the name of the game, not getting any wrong. You can't get them all right. It's not, you know, it's not possible. You can't even, I mean, you saw this, I did like 4 of these and I got 2 of them wrong. You can't even get these simple ones right all the time. So you're never going to get the long ones right all the time, but not getting the wrong one, like the one that loses you the race, because that's obviously loses you the race and then you've lost the race. So try and just stay in the race as long as possible.
Yeah,
and letting the other people lose the race.
Yeah, because it's sort of, and I think from this race you can see that you could afford to lose the 55-45 controls and get the 55 instead of the 45, but you didn't want to lose the 60-40s or the 65-35s because they were the definitive ones that probably lost people the race.
14 was quite costly to go come this way, and again 19 I thought was quite costly, and there's some others, you know.
And even if you take out route choice, the main thing, and I think what you did really well probably to control 2 was just get to the control being that early. Was that in this sort of course you could lose a race on a leg by running up the wrong alley, even not a route choice. Like you probably, like, the likelihood of losing the race on one route choice is probably low, but you can very easily lose the race by making an error compared to a route choice error, like the Tim Robertson or the Tove, or I think Tove stuffed up around that sort of 14-19 area. I was just seeing if there's any other questions. Patrick's just putting some quotes up. I don't know if that one worked out for Tommy Hayes, unfortunately, in the WOC final, but maybe he can't run it faster at the moment. Yeah, cool. Does anyone have any other questions for Aston at the moment about this race or anything else we talked about tonight? I think Jim's got one. Jim, if you want to yell it out, you can.
Yeah, just one to Aston and to anyone else, but we've practiced for knockout so often. We do the butterflies, we do the map choice, we do the free formats they were talking about. Yet we went in the knockout for this one, all simple courses. What was your thought about that?
Yeah,
Did you know that it was going to be like that? And do you think that's the way we should do it or not?
Yeah, so we knew a long time ago, like Pat had already heard rumors back in 2019 that it was going to be this way. And I think everybody knew that it was going to be this way. And I think the Danes' justification was that they made the courses tricky enough with route choices and they didn't need the forkings because, you know, the runner's choice and the forking loops and all that stuff, people are going to, you know, complain. Somebody that misses out is going to say it was unfair and stuff. At least they can't say it was unfair if everybody had the same course. And I think they tried to make the courses tricky enough that people could split up and take better routes if they wanted to. And that was sort of the forking. I thought it was really fun, like, because the courses were hard enough that if you wanted to, you could have split up. Like, I can think of one scenario in the semi-final where I saw a route that was definitely faster. I looked at it afterwards. It was about 5 to 10 seconds faster. And I didn't take it because I was scared of leaving the group. But if I had taken it, you know, maybe things would have been different. So it was quite close to the end as well. So I think
was that the one where everyone turned back, Aston, on your semi-finals?
It was the one just out of the spectator control. Like, we had one really short control out of the spectator. I think I don't have it open, but I can get it open if you give me a couple of seconds.
I think the other definitive one on your leg was the one where you tried to do something different at the end, but if you'd gone, I think everyone on yours turned back, but every single other semi-final ran through the control. It was in the car park, I think. It was interesting.
I tried something different at the very end of number 9 because the race was like it felt like a track race, like the start of a track race. It was physical, like people were bumping, and I was sitting in about 4th on the way to 8 or like 3rd, I can't remember. And then it punched 8, and on the way to 9, all of a sudden I was 10 meters out the back because when I punched the control, I got like hit by the other guys behind me, and like I couldn't get out and I was stuck. And then all of a sudden I was way behind. So that's why I tried something different in the end, and it was bad. But it was number 6 to 7. Everybody came through this way and did this sort of ziggity zaggity thing. And I wanted to come this way and through like that. And looking at the other courses or the girls' course or something, this way was like considerably faster.
Yeah,
but,
I think
you know, it is what it is. I was too scared to leave the group, so that's my fault.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it worked well without the it's definitely less confusing for the general punter in terms of following the race. Like, it's very easy to go, whoever's over the line first is going to be the winner. I think when I've watched coverage of the runner's choice before, it's a bit confusing what's going on. So while it's a bit of fun, I think where you can set a course where there's so many different choices here, and I think every single semi-final, that I don't think there was any semi-final where everyone ran together the entire way. So it was obviously splitting people up enough.
Yeah, I think there was many. If you wanted to, I mean, obviously the guys that trust in their finish kick don't leave, you know, the fastest guys, but there was plenty of options to split up and take potentially a better route if you thought that. So I thought it was good.
Yeah, and definitely in the finals, I think there was definitely lots of splitting up as well. So interesting. I think Toby was asking how you would avoid. Is there any way that you can avoid sort of silly little errors like skipping a control or something like that, like what Chris did? Like, is there any tips to avoiding that sort of thing, or is it somewhat unavoidable?
Yeah, it's definitely hard. You know, if it happens, it's hard to avoid because in the heat of the moment, you're so focused on like, you've pretty much got like tunnel vision in a sprint because you're running as fast as you can. It's so intense. You're so focused on what you're doing that if you just start doing the wrong thing, you're just focused on doing that, and then you've done the wrong thing and you've skipped control, whatever. But it's really hard. The skipping the control one, like I try to thumb my map pretty aggressively, as in keep where I am almost the whole time. So that protects me sometimes. But then again, I did exactly what Chris did in the Danish champ sprint a couple of weeks before WOC. So
yeah,
I don't have an answer to that one.
I guess the main thing that causes it is looking ahead, and it looks like that was what Chris has done. On this course, you can see like control number 1's where you specifically chose not to do it. So I think it often happens in those easy controls where you don't have to focus going into them. And then 5 seconds later, you've forgotten that you're going into an easy control and you're already focused in the next one. Like I run my best ever sprint race. And people have probably seen it before. I ran straight past the spectator, and like you'd think the spectator is the easiest one to punch. But I think again, it was such an easy control that I didn't even think, like I was already full focus on the next. So yeah, I think maybe thumbing is potentially part of a solve, but then the rest may be somewhat unavoidable.
Yeah, it is. It's a hard one to fix because I mean you can do everything to try and prevent it, and then you do as you say. At some point you have to look forward to the next control, and it's so easy just to then think that that's the control you're on, and then bang, you've mispunched. So yeah, unfortunately, everybody does it, and I guess just the more sprint races you do, the more sprint training you do, the less likely it is to happen because you've just got that experience. But in terms of like a fail-safe, a way to actually stop it, I don't really have a good answer for that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that could be something like Chris had probably not done crazy amounts of sprint orienteering, obviously done a bit of preparation, but maybe not continue over the years. And I'm not sure what mine was back then, but yeah, that could be part of it. Bruce has asked, were you happy with the knockout sprint quarterfinal heat selection strategy?
No, I was not.
Worked out all right in the end,
so, yeah.
but
yeah, I picked quite early because I think they did, just like in Gold Coast, they did second place picks first and then first place. So I had like 3 people who picked before me, and picking the first heat, the third heat, and the 5th heat is sort of a bit better than picking 2nd, 4th, and 6th, just because that when you merge for the next race, the 2nd, the 4th, and the 6th get less rest because they're merging. 1st and 2nd are merging together, but the 2nd race is after the 1st race, so they get a little bit less race. So that's why I think in the boys, especially in the beginning, the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th, got the better people a bit earlier. So I went with 5th because I think 1st already got, Matty Kay. Oh no, we had Joe Lynch, and Joe and I had decided beforehand that we weren't going to go in the same heat as like a bit of a courtesy. And then I can't remember who was in the 3rd heat. And then it was Martin Regborn in the 5th heat. And I thought, well, maybe if I go with Martin Regborn, it might put off a few of the good guys just for a few rounds. So they might not go in our heat, and then maybe we'll get stuck with some of the lower qualified people, which is exactly what happened until both Ralph and Tim qualified quite badly in the knockout. And I was looking at the people left to choose, and I think at that point we had the Finnish guy and Jakob Edson, and I was like, okay, it's not too bad of a heat. Like, it's 3 get through. If we get 2 more, like, regular people, this will be good, as long as Ralph and Tim don't pick my heat. And then they both picked my heat, so it made it really
I think previously I think your strategy probably would have worked, where the quals were sort of top heavy in terms of all the best people ranked at the top. But I think now that there's so much depth, the best guys can end up in just sneaking in, and therefore they're sort of joining these they're joining the heats late, which means that your strategy to sort of buff up that heat doesn't really work when those guys don't have a choice where they're going.
Yeah, it
was quite a stressful thing, that the heat selection, and they made a real sort of, I guess, spectacle of it. You know, it was in a big hall, and all the runners got
the little balls.
Yeah, and they had the little balls they had to put in the chute. And Aston, when he went up there, he went into number 6, and then he went no, into number 5, and it was actually, you know, a really good experience. And I did talk to Tim Robinson just before, because this is a new thing for pretty much all of us, and I couldn't offer Aston any advice because I just, you know, I don't know enough about it yet. And so I asked him, and he did say, you know, there are a couple of strategies, and, you know, one of them, like the Swiss guys sort of have used, is they put themselves both in the same heat, so it scares off, you know, other people, so then they end up with weaker people coming in. But yeah, so it was rather stressful. And then when, you know, Ralph and Tim both came into Aston's heat, that was like, oh gosh, it's pretty hot. But you know, it was a good result in the end. Anyway, it was fun and a great experience.
All right, I've got a couple more questions. I might throw to, so Toby's question was, in terms of the knockout, there was some that was setting the pace at the front versus some people hanging back and reading ahead. I think maybe some of the Swiss guys were doing that quite a bit, and obviously worked out quite well for Matthias Geberts in the end. Any thoughts on, like, when you'd use one or the other? Does it depend on the type of runner you are, or does it depend on who's in your heat, or?
Yeah, I think it depends on both those factors. Like, obviously, if you're confident in your kick, like if you're somebody like Ralph's got a pretty good kick, and like the Swedish guy August Milan has got a pretty good kick, they can afford to just sit at the back and read the last leg, because they know that, you know, if they get the last leg right and they're in with a hunt and the last control, they're probably going to make it because they got such a good kick. Whereas somebody like, you know, I'm going to say Tim Robertson, even though Tim has still got a pretty bloody good kick, just compared to like August Milan or maybe even Matty Kay or somebody, not quite as strong. Even though Tim runs a 14-minute flat 5K, his last 200 meters is not as quick as some guys that are good at running 1,500 meters like August Milan.
Yeah.
So his strategy seemed to be like go out and try and like not break them, but almost break them on the course, so that they when it came to the last control, he had enough of a lead that he didn't have to worry about being swamped by those guys right at the end. So, you know, it depends on type of runner you are and the people in your heat. I think the general strategy from the good guys in the quarterfinals was to go out quite hard and try to not leave it to a sprint finish, because, you know, anything can really happen in a sprint finish, even if, like, you know, the races are only 6 to 8 minutes, so nobody's really fully exhausted, so lots of people have still got a decent kick. And if you're not super confident in your kick but pretty confident in your orienteering, you can, you know, I think the strategy, especially in the quarterfinals, is to go out quite hard and try and make sure it doesn't come down to a sprint finish in the end, which happened in some of the heats. I think I remember Matty Kay and Chris Jones heat that happened for the quarterfinal. I mean, I can't exactly remember because I wasn't watching it live. I had to watch it afterwards, but yeah. And then in the semifinals and in the final, it's, I don't know, speaking to Tim, he says, like, you know, once you make it past the quarterfinals, there's a lot of luck involved, obviously, because, you know, it's such a short race and it is such fine margins that, you know, one thing happening that's not really in your control can throw you off the race.
Yeah.
But yeah, and personally, if I had to pick a strategy, I have no idea. It really depends on who you're racing. If I was racing against like August Milan, then I would try and go out hard, because I know no matter what happens, if I'm at this last control at the same time as him, he's going to beat me. And if I was racing against Tim, then maybe I would do the opposite. So it really depends on who you're racing against, which is kind of hard when you don't know the strengths of the people you're racing against. So maybe now that this one, we've had a couple knockouts, in the coming years, people might, you know, a bigger profile might be built of the runners and what they're good and what they're bad at. So it might make the strategies more prominent than this year, where it was a lot of guys were, you know, it was a guess of who's good at what.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's really interesting. All right. Well, we might do one more question and then we might wrap it up. I know it's been a while and you guys might need to get out into the forest. So Pat was just asking, I think it's a nice little way to sum it up and finish off with, but he was asking how it felt suddenly to be equal to, if not better than some of, say, your childhood heroes or people that you looked up to and people that you sort of thought were much better than you. To be equal with them. How did that feel after 2 years of really not competing in Europe?
Wouldn't say I was equal to them. I got, had a few good races and got lucky, but thanks anyway, Pat. It was, I think it all happened so quickly that I didn't really have time to think about it. In the quarantine, you're only in there for not that long before you have to start warming up. And then once you start warming up,